And we're live! Hello, 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 my friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Nicholas W. Fuller. This is Person Behind the Pages. It's the show where we get to know the people that make the things we love. And today, I'm really excited to bring a chat to you with Ness Brown. How you doing, Ness?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you for joining me. Everyone doesn't know this, but it's joining me again. So, so for starters, Ness, can you go ahead and give a little bit of an introduction of yourself, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Ness Brown. I am a debut author. My sci-fi horror novella, The Scourge Between Stars, dropped actually around this time last year. And yay! And in addition, I am also an astrophysicist in training, currently finishing up a graduate degree in astrophysics.
And what's up, Joshua? Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, Ness has had a bit of a journey, I think.
I'd say.
Right? You don't just stumble into astrophysics, you know? I don't like, well, I mean, I guess we all do, don't we?
If we're lucky.
Right. So, yeah, all right. So, debut author, astrophysics, former professor of astrobiology.
Right.
Bit of a nerd, of course. Wouldn't be here if you weren't a nerd.
A given.
Right. And but also you were a guest at Bubonicon. Can you talk just a little bit about what that was like and what you did there?
Absolutely. So last year, August of last year, I was a part of the annual sci-fi, fantasy, speculative media convention called Bubonicon, which is back in my home state of New Mexico, hosted in Albuquerque. For example, George R. R. Martin, I think, has attended most of the last couple decades worth of meetings. So although it's a really kind of small, tight-knit con, it definitely is not to be missed. And I was so honored to have been invited to come in as the science speaker for last year. Basically, I was able to give a presentation during the opening night of the con all about the hazards to human life in space. It was an incredible time, and I hope I can go back this year as well.
That's amazing. So, hey, Bo. Hey, Tim. Bo said so. She's wicked smart, and I think that's absolutely true. Right?
That's too kind.
That is super. So, yes, all the ways that the hazards in space, as you phrased it, but all the ways that space will kill you, which is, a collection, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so fun. I've been to like a few different nerd cons, but I haven't seen a science speaker at one, and like that is so cool. I want to see more of that. This is also such a great time. I have to make a shameless plug for myself. I did a podcast called My Dad Built Spaceships because my dad was an environmental control and life support system engineer for the space shuttle. And the first episode is called Car Crashes and Death Chambers. And it's very much about all the ways that space will kill you also.
Oh, yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and as I say, thank you. I do want to say thank you, Ness, for a couple different points. Number one, thanks for joining me again, because it's again. And we spoke once before, and I recorded that with the intention to like edit it and put it out. But my fault, there were some technical issues that I should have identified as we were doing it, but it was really hard to kind of edit around it. But you were gracious enough to come back, even though I screwed that up. So one, I appreciate that. But two, I got to tell you, Ness, at that time, I was kind of a little bit considering like maybe this isn't that, I kind of enjoy the interviews, but I don't know if I want to keep doing it. But it was my conversation with you, Ness, that like made me want to keep doing it, because it was just like it was such a fun conversation that sort of went in areas that I wasn't necessarily expecting, and I enjoyed it so much, and I was like, I need to keep doing this. I'm going to be able to have such cool conversations with interesting people that I otherwise would never get to talk to. So thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, you made my night. I truly enjoyed the convo as well, and I'm so happy that we're doing this round two.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah, last time, again, you're a professor of astrobiology, so we talked about where the heck are the real aliens. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about your writing. We're going to talk about, maybe we'll talk about some video games and some of our inspirations in different media and that sort of thing. But I want to start, Ness, with talking about your writing specifically. So I remember from our conversation before, you said that in a perfect world, you enjoy writing every day, right? So that's incredible. How long have you been doing that? Like since you were knee high to a grasshopper, or since last week, or how long have you been?
I would say I first got into the habit probably around 9 years old.
Wow.
And with the caveat that at that age it was obviously complete and utter crap. But well, maybe that's true for today as well. But I think that's just a part of the process. I think that as with anything, practice is truly what makes perfect. I think that, we think of athletes doing warm-ups before they, actually start playing. We think of artists, doing wrist stretches maybe, or practice brush strokes before they get into it. And I really think that writers, it behooves us to do the same. Maybe we don't always think of it that way, but I think that's important. And I like to try to do my warm-ups and then a little bit of tip typing every day. But as you kind of alluded to, only under perfect circumstances am I able to kind of hit the daily goal, and circumstances have been less than ideal recently, but for all good reasons.
Right. Yeah. So one of the chief reasons right now is that I think you mentioned you're pursuing a graduate degree in astrophysics, right?
That's correct.
That's got to be easy though. You're just like, hey, stars and they move, no problem, right?
That's it. Done. Paper submitted.
Paper submitted. I think you're working on your thesis. I would love to actually hear a little bit because I'm a huge nerd and I like these things. So, what is your thesis about? In the thesis you're writing for a graduate degree in astrophysics, that's got to be like what is it about? And then bring it down so I can understand it. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, Lord. Well, to be quite honest with you, I'm still in the midst of breaking down my own results and getting a handle on them. But the basics of what I'm doing with my mentors for my Master of Science is we are doing simulations of what's called a galaxy cluster, which is essentially a great big kind of group of galaxies, maybe, like a couple thousand even, that are all interacting with each other. And it's actually the sort of biggest structures that we see in the universe, these huge groups of galaxies all orbiting each other. And what we wanted to know was, typically, when astrophysicists do simulations, there are usually a couple physics that we might leave out of the simulation just to save computational time, or, we can't realistically include every single detail that we know to be true.
You can't model the entire universe in a reasonable amount of time,
I know. What are we even doing here? But no, sadly. And so, for example, many simulations in the past would have done away with magnetic fields, just as an example, because they are not like fully, truly understood in all scales of astrophysics. And so what we decided to do was, let's take the biggest structural scale in the universe and let's simulate it twice, once with magnetic fields and then once without. And then we compare how those two simulations came out just to kind of see, what do magnetic fields actually do in the largest cosmic structures?
That's fascinating. So you've run those simulations and you've got that data, and now you're kind of trying to be like, okay, so what are these differences, and pull some conclusions from that. That's the work of your thesis now.
Absolutely. And so far the results are very intriguing, but sometimes intriguing can be frustrating in that we found something we didn't expect, and now in my draft, my mentor was like, "Huh, that's funny. Why?" Like, no, don't ask me the hard questions.
Why? What? Who? Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So fun stuff, but hard stuff.
Sounds like trying to build a Death Star with its cosmic structures. I mean,
Well, I wouldn't admit it on live if I were.
Oh no! That's funny. You just like turn your chair around and stroke.
Exactly. I have 2 cats with me. I should have arranged this.
Oh man, that'll be in the bloopers later. Nice. Sounds like a confession. I knew it. So begins the end. What bunch of trolls I brought for you, Ness. That's funny. That's super cool. That's really interesting. What other? Because I'm a nerd and I want to like. What are some of the things that you included in both models? Of course, like gravity, right? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about galaxy clusters, and one reason why this is maybe an ideal sort of natural laboratory to study magnetic fields in, is the fact that because they're so large, many of their kind of characteristics can be largely described by dark matter itself, structurally anyway. Now, there are definitely going to be a lot of other physics that come into play with the, like galaxies themselves. For example, you can have supernovae going off, and they're going to, emanate, these winds that will affect the gas in between galaxies. You can have supermassive black holes that are giving out enormous jets or winds or other kinds of feedback. So in our simulation, we do not include all and sundry of these, I would say like pretty complicated gas physics. Instead, we're sort of, we have dark matter, we have gas, but we don't, for example, have like stars. They're not directly simulated in the simulation, and that kind of keeps the computational cost down.
Fascinating. There's this other YouTube channel called, I think it's called Cleo Abrams. She's the host, but she has a show called Huge If True. Really fascinating stuff. She gets millions of views because she's fantastic at what she's doing. But I think it's her most recent. She went to CERN and she talked with some of the scientists that are working on the Large Hadron Collider. And her whole video is just kind of breaking down like, what is the Large Hadron Collider? Why did they do it? Why did they build it? And what are they learning? And she was talking a little bit about dark matter in that video. And so one of the things that she said was that, well, the scientists said that like invisible matter would have been a better name, which I thought was interesting. But like 27% of all matter in the universe is the dark matter. They kind of threw that number out there. Does that seem remotely correct to you, Ness?
It's actually the other way around. The majority of all matter in the universe is dark matter, and the regular matter that you and I know is actually in the minority. Isn't that disturbing?
The majority of stuff in the universe we can't see, we can't measure yet, right? Or no, I guess we can measure it in some. We know that it exists, right? So how do you measure dark? See, this is what's great about talking to you, Ness. I just get to go like on these total nerdy rabbit holes. How do you measure dark matter?
So it can only be measured indirectly. It is true that it is invisible in the sense that it does not. Spectrum. Yeah, it doesn't interact with light at any part of the spectrum.
It does interact with light in the sense that it will bend light because of its gravitation, right?
Sure. No? Yeah. Okay. That I would say, in a technical sense, I wouldn't call that necessarily an interaction between the dark matter particles and light, but more their effect on space-time has altered the photon path.
That's the kind of clarification I love. All right, that's amazing. All right.
But yeah, so one more, I guess, little tidbit I'd like to drop in here just while we're on the topic.
Yeah,
If you kind of
while we're here discussing dark matter, space
if
time.
you're not only talking about matter, but if you talk about like all of the things that we kind of understand the universe to be made up of now, the vast majority is going to be dark energy. And then after that, the next biggest component is dark matter. And then after that, we have what we know and interact with and are made of. And that's only 5% of the universe's total energy budget, essentially.
You know that saying, like, the more I know I don't know? I feel like that's like the just guiding light of science overall. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Joshua says, I find dark matter so interesting. Tell us more. So we're doing it. But Ryan and Lupos both have basically the same question. What is dark energy versus dark matter?
Well, I'll give a couple of disclaimers before I try to tackle this question. One of which is that
does that mean that there are dark beings, or are you the only dark being because you're actually making the Death Star?
We should keep this under wraps. We shouldn't talk about this openly. All
right. So caveats about the dark matter.
Yeah. So in the first place, no one has a definitive answer to the question. So that actually puts a little bit of pressure off of me. But to further disclaim, I also am not, for example, a dark matter physicist, and I don't work on dark energy, so I'm not an expert. But essentially...
But you know a lot more than the jokers in chat, so come on.
Well, I have to say, I'm always surprised at how much just the interested individual knows about the universe. So I never assume that a non-astronomer won't surprise me in conversation with their expertise. Fair. But so dark matter, we first kind of noticed it in the 1930s when we realized that, for example, in big galaxy clusters like the one that I'm studying, there doesn't seem to be enough matter visible to us to account for the movements of the galaxies within. So they're going really, really fast. That kind of implies that there's a big mass there that is pulling them, its gravitational force is kind of swinging them around their orbits. But when we look in the light that we can see, we're not seeing enough matter to really account for these velocities. And so that implies there's something additional there we can't see. And then, over the next several decades, people have made all kinds of really robust sort of measurements that further imply that, yes, we're missing something. Something's out there that we can't see. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be a matter, just in that it does bend space-time. Mm-hmm. In the ways we kind of see ordinary matter doing. As far as dark energy goes, I feel that right now this is maybe even a bit more of a nebulous concept, just in that no one has super great ideas, to my knowledge, about what dark energy is exactly. Whereas there are some ideas about what dark matter could be. But dark energy, I think, is a little bit more mysterious, which is really concerning because, again, that's like over 70% of what's filling the universe. But its main function is to actually force the universe to expand at an accelerating rate. That is what dark energy does to the cosmos. We should also... Just letting it sink in.
Yep. The gears are turning. The sponge is soaking. Amazing. Man. All right. That's funny. Yeah, dark energy is why the universe is getting bigger, faster. Got it. Yeah, like negative gravity. I mean, that's sort of, I
Yeah.
mean, a repulsive force. Sure, sure.
That's how it was
Uh,
introduced.
that's fat. You mentioned that it was kind of discovered in the 1930s, which also blows my mind. I love that. Like, I mean, so much of science is just like, observation, and but the fact that they're discovering dark matter through observation around the same time that radar is being like invented is,
Right. I
um
agree.
all right, all right. So that, I mean, I love these tangents that I get to go on with you, Ness, but let's kind of rein it in just a little bit and talk about you a little bit more rather than the vast cosmos. Obviously you're doing a lot of work to go study astrophysics. Obviously, you're wicked smart, as Bo said earlier. But what got you into this to begin with? What started your journey in astrophysics?
I definitely love to tell this story, and I'll try to, tell it quickly. But I would say that the journey really started back kind of halfway through my high school experience when I was invited to go to Costa Rica on an environmental conservation trip. Excuse me. And basically, my cousin, our friend, and a group of other students, we traveled to Costa Rica to help efforts to save leatherback turtles in the area. And so one evening, we went out to kind of assist with these conservation efforts. And the way it works, or at least with this particular organization, is you go out at like 11 o'clock at night and you're out until like 2 in the morning. And part of this is because turtles, like mother turtles, for example, will come to shore, lay their eggs, and then they will go back out to the ocean under the cover of darkness. But some of the like issues there are other animals can poach the eggs, or humans can poach the eggs, and it's driving some of the ecological issues in the area. So one night we go out, and I'm not having a great time because it's kind of late, and you cannot use flashlights when you do this work because it will confuse the turtles. They'll mistake it for the moon, which they do use for navigating back into the ocean. So we're stumbling along on this very duney, uneven beach. It's dark. I'm tired. But everything kind of changes when we come across a mother turtle giving birth on the beach. And it was a very humbling and very magical experience because this particular turtle was like missing a back fin. So we had to help her with every part of the process. We dug out the hole that she was going to like use for egg laying. We like caught the eggs as they were coming out because we were going to, move some to another location. And we were just very hands-on in this like incredible, kind of like liminal experience. And as soon as the turtle was done, she starts going back to the ocean. At that exact moment, this huge wave, like none of the other waves we had seen that night, comes up the shore, forces us to kind of run away. And when we turn back, we see that she's gone, but all, excuse me, all of the clouds that had been kind of hanging out in the sky over the ocean, they all broke at once. And like the whole vault, like the entire filament was on display. And up until that point, I had never seen the night sky without light pollution. But I swear I was seeing every star in the sky at that moment. The beautiful band of the Milky Way, all of it was so crystal clear. And not only did I like have that vision, that like vista in front of me, but as we were walking back to our camp, excuse me, it was like we were in James Cameron's Avatar or something, because every step that we took on the sand was like lighting up. There was some bioluminescent creature, like an algae perhaps, in the sand. So as we were going back home, we were like escorted by like stars above, stars below. It was truly this indelible memory that stuck into my mind. And then when I got to university and was trying to figure out what my major should be, that memory inspired me to take an astro class, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. That's like, you need to write that scene into one of your books, I think, if you haven't already.
That would be, yeah. Oh, I wonder if I could do it justice. It was so magical.
I mean, I think you're selling it here, Sounds cool. Yeah, I want to, I don't know, go out on a sailboat or something and go see all the stars with no light pollution. That'd be, yeah, bucket list for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you study astrophysics. Now, by the way, what is astrophysics? How about we define astrophysics a little bit?
It beats me, but no. A little more seriously. So, in astrophysics, what we're studying are basically and sorry to be a little, it's not tongue in cheek, I swear, but the physics of astronomical objects, astronomical structures. So, it could be, for example, under the umbrella of astrophysics, you can have the formation of planets and stars. Mm-hmm. You can have, interactions among giant molecular clouds. You can have supernovae. You can have active galactic nuclei, or as I work on, galaxy cluster evolution. So it's a huge term that encapsulates a wide variety. So in every cosmic scale, there's something to study about the physics that kind of really set up everything we see in the sky.
Neat. All right. Questions. Just about space stuff. All right. No. Let me hold on to a little bit of that. Houston. Astrophysics isn't related to learning about Houston baseball today. The Astros. Turns out. But Ryan did have a really interesting question, and I think I want to come back to that question, Ryan and Joshua. Those were really good. But okay. So you go to university, you're doing astrophysics. What made you go that route rather than kind of deciding to get to major in English literature or something and then get an MFA in creative writing, that sort of thing?
I actually thought when I got to university that I would get some kind of language or writing degree. That was this nebulous plan that I had. I took my first writing class and hated it. It's such a bad time. I was shocked because, writing is, I obviously I've talked a lot about astro here tonight, but writing is, my lifelong passion. And I kind of did expect to have more of a route like what you described. But I think for me, writing, I hated when the structure and the rigidity came in, I think, with the coursework. So it wasn't to be. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of felt like you couldn't be as creative as you wanted to, maybe.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But obviously, I guess you never really stopped writing, right? You just...
Not at all.
So your debut book came out last year, but you've been writing since you were 9, and ideally every day. The stars, right? Go ahead, hold it up again. Let's see. Ooh, And so, yeah, that you're traditionally published, and it's like a sci-fi horror, right?
That's correct.
So fans of Alien movie, and I think we talked before when we did talk before. You said that you watched those when you were way too young, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Alien. Some people bring up Event Horizon for good reasons. I can't remember if we mentioned this exactly last time, but I would say that my inspirations are very much like Pitch Black. What is that? 2000 with Vin Diesel. Doom. It was not a critically acclaimed adaptation, but the 2005 movie with The Rock and Carl Urban. I love that kind of stuff, and I feel like those influences are really what drove me to put Scourge together.
Nice. That's pretty fun. I was wondering, too, because you've been doing so much writing. Do you have a drawer somewhere with just a whole bunch of manuscripts that haven't been out in the world yet?
I would say there's only one actual story that I have that has not seen the light of day, but I do have a really dilapidated, just falling apart binder of little tidbits that I've worked on. I just retired it. I had that binder since maybe the 6th grade or something, and I just put them to rest. But
You got rid of it, or you?
I
Okay.
just I
Okay. You said it aside.
replaced it. Yeah.
Okay. God, for a second. Oh no! Like, you have to keep it anyway. Anyone who loves aliens is a friend of Okie Dude. So there you go.
Here.
Yep. So yeah, let's talk just a little bit more about Scourge Between the Stars. It's a shorter book, right?
Yes.
So one of the blurbs, quotes, that's escaping me, but Chloe Gong said a perfect scare to swallow up in one sitting. I love that very much.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more, like, what's kind of the pitch, like who's what's going on in the story, how's it set up,
Yeah. So when we join the story, we are following acting Captain Jacqueline Albright, who is filling in for her father, who is the captain of the starship Calypso. This is a very dilapidated generation ship, which is actually on its way back to Earth from a failed exoplanetary colony on nearby exoplanet Proxima b. And as the crew is kind of heading back to Earth, they're suffering from, starvation, technical issues with the ship. There is some unseen force or a kind of minefield that they're trying to navigate through interstellar space back to Earth that they don't understand. And to top it all off, halfway through the journey home, they realize that they're actually not the only ones on board the ship. So again, fans of Alien, and certainly, with the interstellar journey, like fans of Event Horizon, I think will hopefully really enjoy this short scare.
Bum, bum, bum. They're not alone. Very good. Yeah, is it a dark matter minefield?
Not out.
That's super cool. And the book is available, like everywhere books are sold. You can definitely pick it up on Amazon and all that fun stuff, right?
That's exactly correct. Although if anyone has their local bookstore that they like to go to, I always ask buy local.
Randy Sanders books on Instagram, spooky. Totally agree, bud. So yeah, spooky in a good way. So I maybe I should do a live stream while I'm reading it and just screaming while around Halloween.
Too funny.
Anyway, I won't do that. I'd scream like a girl. Embarrassing. Anyway,
the best recommendation.
Yeah, so everyone should go pick it up. Go pick it up. Associate your independent local bookstore. That sounds really fun. What were some? So obviously, Alien is an inspiration, right? What are some other sci-fi stuff that you were consuming when you were younger than you should have been consuming them? Are you an X-Files fan?
I actually have had little to do with X-Files, which is a kind of lack that I'm really hoping to rectify in my adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of classics that I'm looking forward to going back to now that, well, once I graduate and have a little bit more time to my name, I'm happy to go back and do that. But I would say that growing up, I was certainly more of a Trekkie more than anything else.
Nice. Who's your favorite character in all of Trekkie? Dumb.
Spock easily. Possibly my favorite character in all fiction.
In all that is
That's strong, right?
That's strong. But I respect it. Spock is solid. What makes Spock so good for you?
Well, I think there were a lot of things that drew me to the character. One, more, I guess, personal reason was Spock definitely struggles a lot with his mixed heritage throughout the series. That was something that really resonated with me, being mixed race. And what I really like about a lot of the later episodes is that we start to see that underneath the Vulcan veneer, Spock is probably the most compassionate character on the show. he feels so deeply for like other forms of life and cares so much about the preservation of life in the universe that I just really felt he was like an ocean of a character where, you know, you can really keep going deeper down into the character. And I found that so fascinating given how he's presented. And I was also once able to, I went to Dragon Con in Atlanta when I was in high school, and I was able to catch a panel from Leonard Nimoy. And he just listening to him talk about the inspiration that he brought to Spock, like, you know, parts of his heritage, his Jewish background that he like felt was important to, you know, to put into his portrayal. All of it, I love Spock.
Yeah, yeah. Leonard Nimoy seems like he was awesome. So many awesome people in Star Trek, though, like LeVar Burton. You know.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. I've got a Reading Rainbow mug up here somewhere. From, yep.
Oh, that's perfect.
Bo said "Live long in dark matter," which is pretty good. Pretty good. Of all the technology in Star Trek, what's some of your favorite or some things that stand out for you?
So, I have two answers to this question. For me personally, I'm down with the tricorder. I just love the idea of a swift, you know, analysis that will give you the whole rundown. I wish what I would do for that today, especially because I recently found out that I have a shellfish allergy, which I've never had before in my life. And because I'm not used to it at all, I keep stumbling upon shellfish in my food. I feel like this could easily be solved by some quick Star Trek tech.
Right.
But I guess the other answer would be, this is more nostalgia than anything, but I remember my dad, you know, he was the one to introduce me to Star Trek originally, although he's next gen all the way. But he told me about how when he originally started watching Star Trek and he would see them working on the tablets or the pads, he would get like irrationally angry because he was like, there's absolutely no way that kind of tech could be, you know, in this little tiny device. He was so passionate about it. And then, you know, as we were recounting this story, he was obviously like FaceTiming me on his iPad. So it was sorry.
He got that one wrong. Yeah.
Safe to say. But that's one of my...
No, I get it. I get, you know, being like, I mean, that can't work in that format. How could it possibly be? You know, it's just a screen. There's no computer with it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. All right. I like Bo's question here. I'm going to pull this in. So obviously you're traditionally published. But these days, you know, indie publishing is respectable, right? So what's your take on the state of publishing? You chose to go traditional. Are you happy with that decision? I don't think your publisher's listening right now, so you can be honest. Have you ever considered going hybrid or self? I don't know if you're familiar with Brandon Sanderson and the way that he's like put out these secret projects. Are you familiar? Okay. Let me tell you a little story about that for just a second. So Brandon Sanderson, he's a fantasy author. And he's been, okay, so you're familiar with him. But he came out in 2022, I think. He announced this Kickstarter. Must have been, yeah. And he said, hey, you know, the pandemic was crazy and everyone deals in different ways. And what I did was I wrote 4 extra novels. Because the man's insane. Like, he has an addiction, and that addiction is writing, and we all benefit from it. But yeah, so he wrote 4 extra novels on top of what he was already contracted to write with his publishers, right? So what he decided to do was run a Kickstarter and bring those novels directly to the audience. With the Kickstarter, he sold it's kind of crazy. He sold like ebooks of the different secret novel projects. He sold audiobooks. He sold like kind of hardback, pretty special editions. but then also you could go really nuts and you could spend like $500 or something, but you could get all the books and all the editions, and you'd get like a swag box every month throughout the entire year of 2023.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
Yeah. It was next level, right?
Yeah.
And it's only possible because he's got like a whole team of people working with him and whatever. But it was the most funded Kickstarter in all of Kickstarter. Like not just
Wow.
books or whatever. It like he raised, help me out, Bo, because I bet you know off the top of your head. I think it was like, was it 20 something million or was it 40 million? It was one of those. Like dude raised a lot of money. And now he's he's done it again. He's been doing also like leather bound editions of his most popular books, and he's self-published. He bought the rights to do leather bounds back from his traditional publisher. In fact, they actually just gave them to him because they said they never make money on special editions like that. So they were like, sure, you can go do it. But he just did another one for like a leather bound of the second or third in his Stormlight Archive book, along with another secret novel project because the dude's insane and he has a problem. In that one, so Bo, let me know. Yeah, the other one, the big one with the 4 secret projects was just shy of 42 million, but he just wrapped up this other one and he raised, I think that one was in the more like in the teens or 20s or something. So anyway, like I feel like he's in this really excellent position where he's getting sort of the best of both worlds, you know?
Yeah.
Because even those secret projects, after his Kickstarter and everything, he did go and work with his traditional publisher, and now they're available in bookstores. So he still that's like he's getting the distribution, he's getting everything, you know?
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, just kind of thinking about all this and that sort of thing. You know, how did you ever think about doing into yourself before you got the trad deal? Are there like, is that other thing that you said is, you know, you have one other manuscript that's sort of hanging out there? Is that something where you're like, you know what, if they're all going to take passes on it, I'm gonna show them, and I'm gonna go to like, you know, what are your thoughts on any of this? You know, I mean, granted, you're just learning about the story of Brandon Sanderson, but still, what's your initial thought on that too? Besides, like, holy cow, 42.
Yeah. Right? Now it's my turn. I need to let the sponge soak. You know, I think what I'm about to say will maybe sound a little flippant or ungrateful, and that's not how I mean it at all. But I didn't necessarily have any concrete ideas about publishing at all when the chance to get published came to me. I knew I loved writing, and I did it virtually every day. And I that secret project that I'm talking about, like, that's a book trilogy that I've been working on for 10 years now, I think. Nice. But I wouldn't say that I felt like the impetus, like it needs to be out in the world under any circumstance. I never felt that. Okay. And in fact, the reason why Scourge is published at all is because I had seen on Tor Nightfire's Twitter that they had an open submission period for Black, Indigenous authors of color that didn't have agents. And, you know, they were like, if you have a story, go ahead and send it in. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I should do this. I should do this. I didn't even have a manuscript for them. So I like quickly wrote it up before the open submission period closed. And I sent it in, not necessarily, my heart wasn't like, yeah. If it happened, great. If it didn't happen, you know, I'd just keep doing what I like. I guess my enjoyment of my own stories and the process of writing and the output was definitely not contingent on any publishing status. And so I was blessed to get this great opportunity, and Scourge, I'm so grateful for this little book. It's taken me so far. But I would say even today, I don't know that I have the gumption to, you know, take on the true amount of work that it is to self-publish. I really respect everyone who gets their writing out that way. And I would say right now I'm kind of just like, sometimes I was in the really blessed position late last year where my agent said, hey, this franchise is kind of interested in working with you. How do you feel about that? I was like, what? So I've been in a position where great people who are looking out for me have extended opportunities to me, and I haven't yet thought about the work that I would like to do, or the effort that I would like to put in, to kind of what's next for me in terms of traditional or self-publishing. So I guess I did a lot of rambling just to say I'm not sure.
That's fair. That's fair. And that's really cool. So I obviously you're. Someone on a Instagram. The Instagram doesn't pull into StreamYard the way that YouTube and would. So I look it over. Someone on Instagram said the iPhone is only a gas analyzer short of being a tricorder. Which is, it's like, I mean, but I see where you're going. You definitely like what the watches have quite a bit of data and health data and that sort of thing.
Fair.
Your academic work right now is taking up all your time, of course. But I'm assuming that there will be more Ness Brown books in the future out in the world, not just in a drawer.
That's my hope. I don't have anything concrete to share with anyone right now, but there's definitely things that are moving around behind closed doors. So hopefully I can make some announcements in a timely manner.
That's really cool. That's really neat. Okay. Yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting. I don't know, honestly, I respect that kind of your writing is for you. I mean, granted, you don't want to bring it out in the world, but that's sort of secondary. That's what's up. That's a good way to do it. All right. Let's get back into space shit. Unless there's anything else that you'd like to share, kind of that's writing related at all, or anything. Or what? Let me ask you this real quick, and you can think if there's any. But last book you read that was an absolute banger.
Ooh, let me just glimpse.
Yep.
All right, so many come to the forefront of my mind, but something that I really enjoyed recently, and this is actually not in my, I guess, usual wheelhouse. Like I typically am very sci-fi, fantasy, horror attracted, but I also like stories that are more toward the magical realism side of things. Mm-hmm. And although this isn't necessarily a magical realism book, I really liked. Oh my goodness! Now I can't think of the
title.
The Mountain Under the Sea. The Mountain Under the Sea. That's what it is. So it basically is a, I guess, near future sci-fi story that I think has like interesting, maybe even super sci-fi elements, super as in almost like outside of sci-fi elements that has to do with intelligent octopi, sort of like I would say probably like there's elements of like climate change, there's elements of like capitalism, refugees. It's very, very interesting. I'm doing a terrible job talking about it, but I thought it was so beautifully written. I thought it was so intelligent. It was so exciting. I just loved every bit of it. It was so good.
Nice. Near future. Have you read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir?
I haven't yet, actually.
When you're not doing your thesis, I bet you're gonna like it. You should check it out.
Awesome! Yeah.
I'm sure you liked The Martian, right?
I was very impressed. I was very impressed by The Martian, especially because I thought his background was in comp sci.
It is.
But I thought he did the astro stuff. I thought it was handled really well, so I did like it a lot.
Right, a little bit jumping over the shark at the very end, where he like pokes a hole in his thing to make it right. Like, I mean, technically maybe, but right. But I mean, yeah, I loved it too. Every bit. I watched that movie and I walked out of the movie, and I hadn't really heard of the book prior to the movie, but then I walked out of the movie theater and walked at the bookstore that was right next to that particular movie theater, picked up that book and started reading right away. It was so good.
Oh yes, loved it.
But Project Hail Mary, feels really similar. So if you like The Martian, you're gonna love that one.
Awesome. Yeah.
And that's all I'm gonna say, because it's much better to come into it with a blank slate, I think. But we'll go with Bo's question. I like the way you phrase this too, Bo. So Ness, when your world domination plans are foiled and you have to quickly flee your Death Star in an escape pod, what 3 books are you taking to keep you company?
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. Number 1 is going to be Contact by Carl Sagan. I already know. When I was a professor of astrobiology, I would show that film at the end of every semester.
Nice.
And it never gets old. It's so good.
Yeah.
Contact. Again, veering a little bit out of, my specialty. There is a book called The Night Tiger, which is set in colonial Malaysia. And, kind of around the main plot of the protagonist, there is this danger of, man-eating were-tigers that come from like Malaysian culture. Also so good. I could read it over and over again. It's so fantastic.
Nice.
And the 3rd book, what will it be? Something by Ursula K. Le Guin. Something by her. I know that I need that with me when I escape.
Yes. Nice. All right. Cool. Let's get back to the Astro goodies. Couple questions in the chat that I thought were really interesting. We'll start with Joshua's. So exponential growth of the universe is astounding to him. I agree. And there is no limitation to this exponential growth, right?
Well, now we're almost veering outside with questions that have to do with like the beginning of the universe, before the Big Bang, or the end of the universe. Like they're almost outside the realm of science, just in that we don't really have great data to come to any, like really robust conclusions. But there are several ideas about what kind of happens to the universe from this point on. Mm-hmm. Some of them are less popular than others, just given, what we started to learn. But there's like the idea that after the Big Bang, there's a reversal and we come back to like the big crunch. That's one idea. And some people even believe that maybe after the crunch, that leads to a big bounce where it comes back out again. A new universe is born.
I've never heard of the big crunch before. That's going to thanks. I'm going to have nightmares.
Well, it all depends on, things like the geometry of the universe. Is the universe over dense or under dense? All of these are going to kind of decide what the ending will look like.
Of course.
My basic understanding is that I think the most popular forecast, if you could say that, is that the universe, like gravity is not sufficient to overcome this expansion, this accelerating expansion. And so the universe will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until all of the sort of space between particles is so great that they can't interact anymore. And the universe essentially dies what's called a heat death. And it just goes cold and frigid and in expanding darkness forever.
Yay! Okay, you mentioned that it's this dark energy that's causing the universe to expand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there enough data to say whether we're seeing more dark energy, or is it the same amount and it's just sort of pushing more?
So my understanding is that, and I had thrown around like some very loose numbers before about like dark energy being, 3/4 of the universe. And that hasn't always been true. There are different eras of the universe's history where dark energy, dark matter, radiation, like one of these has been the biggest component. But we're in the era of dark energy now because when new space is made, dark energy essentially fills that space. So the amount of dark energy continues to grow with the expansion and then push the expansion. That's the accelerating element that we have going on. So There's more all the time.
Wow. All right. help me out here too. Earth is 4 billion years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the current theories on the age of the universe?
13.7.8.
Give or take, right? Okay.
Not me.
And yeah, and man, okay, crazy. What's the so when we're are we judging that 13.8 based on the furthest object that we're able to observe, or how do we come at that 13.7, 13.8?
Great question. I'm a terrible astrophysicist to ask this to, because I don't do cosmology, even though it's so tantalizing. But my understanding is that there are a lot of different measurements that go into piecing together what that cosmic age might be. So, for example, one tool that we can use is something called the cosmic microwave background.
Right.
Yeah, some people may know what that is, but if you don't, basically after the Big Bang, there's this leftover heat, so to speak, from the bang that created everything. And that heat has been, spreading throughout the universe since the moment of its birth, but it has slowly cooled down with universal expansion and, with time since that moment. And when you kind of do an all sky measurement of the cosmic microwave background, you can see little details in the emission, in the measurement that you make, that definitely give us kind of a window into what the universe looked like many, 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 many billions of years ago. But then you'll put those cosmic microwave background measurements with distance measurements that you could make with certain types of supernovae, which are good. We call them standard candles. They're really good measurements because we always know how bright they'll be. So if we see one and it's really, really dim, we can say, it's this far away, and so on and so forth. So it'll be a lot of tools that will come together to help us piece the age measurement.
Fascinating. Lupus asks, is there a point where there is where the expansion will stop and the universe will collapse on itself? And I think the best answer is we don't know, right? Sounds like that the big crunch is one theory that you were saying, but there's so that's kind of a snappy name, Big Crunch. Is there a snappy name like that for the heat death, or is that pretty much as snappy as it gets?
Yeah, I think that it's about as solemn as the concept itself, just heat death. But one thing that I do like about the term Big Bang, though, is if I'm remembering the history correctly, the person who gave the hypothesis, now the theory, that name, was actually in opposition to it. And he said it, super sarcastically, that's how this Big Bang idea, and it was immortalized.
How pissed is he? That's funny.
I could be getting the details wrong, but that's what I've heard.
We won't fact. There's no peer review here. Thank God. Right? I don't know. Joshua says this, heat death sounds sweet to him. I'm not with you on this one, Joshua.
Well, this should only take place many, 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 many trillions of years in the future. So we have time to warm up to the idea.
Really, I don't know. That's all right. Does the outward expansion of the universe affect? I love this one. Affect us at a local point, at a local level, when we're sort of somewhere along the center of the universe. So, if you stretch chewed gum, the center thins. Are we is our space time getting thinner as the universe is stretching?
So,
I like that.
I don't know that we would use the term that we would conceptualize it as the space-time getting thinner. But I think a very appropriate and similar question to ask is the local matter around us getting pulled along with the stretch? with the expansion. And I think that's the question that we can answer now with what we know. And for right now, the answer is no. Locally, gravity, is still overpowering the expansion. But there should come a point, like in the heat death scenario, where even gravity will not be sufficient to, local gravity won't be sufficient to keep things like galaxies and then eventually solar systems and then eventually maybe even objects themselves. It won't be enough to keep them together. They'll start getting ripped apart.
Cool. And by cool, I mean not.
Pretty gruesome stuff.
Right? That's like worse than Thanos right there, All right. We're at an hour. I would love to chat more, but if you need to run, I want to respect that. Are you good?
Yeah, I've got a few more minutes in me.
Okay. All right. I want to get into astrobiology, but before that, as you were talking about the things that we're kind of understanding, I was just thinking for a second. Do you know anything about there's neutrino telescopes?
A little.
I know very little. So I get here's my understanding. And I'd love for you to just add to any of this because I find it fascinating. But neutrinos are these, I think they're subatomic particles, but they or maybe they're not. Feel free to correct me. But they pass through lots of matter, right?
They do.
But we're starting to be able to observe them with these massive telescopes that they're built into ice. That's pretty much the extent of what I know. So tell me everything that you know because I'm so interested.
Yeah, I have to give a major disclaimer for this bit because not only do I not work on this, but I'm also not an observational astrophysicist or physicist, although that will change when I do my PhD. But it is exciting. So with these neutrino telescopes, my understanding is that we have to take advantage of the density, like the densest materials that we have locally in order to try to detect them. Because as you pointed out, please don't quote me, but 99% of any matter that these neutrinos will encounter, they will pass right through. So what we do is we bury these telescopes deep, deep, deep underground, and they can be made up of, these detectors or these sensors that are placed in huge vats of, sometimes it's water, but I think sometimes they use other elements as well, just to we need a dense substance. So at first we expect these neutrinos to mostly travel through Earth, and then we want to catch them with, some kind of dense substance so that they'll hit our detectors and we can actually stop them in their paths. And, the goal here is to solve some outstanding problems in astrophysics, which are, there are certain interactions that we expect to be happening in the universe, and we expect them to produce a lot of neutrinos. And then when we try to find them, we don't see them. So there's a missing neutrino problem, which is, kind of one thing we're trying to investigate by doing whatever we can, making kind of the densest sort of setups we can to stop them long enough for us to study them.
The old missing neutrino. Yep. That's so I love how so much of astrophysics and science at these different scales is just we don't know.
We don't know.
There should be this thing here, and where is it? I don't know. That's the whole reason the Large Hadron Collider was created, right? There should be this Higgs boson particle, but no one's really seen it before, so we don't know, right?
We don't know. We don't.
But then we build the Higgs, the Large Hadron, and we smash particles together, and then we do know. So that's fun.
It's a process.
Classic dark neutrino. Yeah.
Classic.
Just being all sneaky. Nobody knows. All right. Astrobiology. So astro, stars, biology, life. Clearly you study the life of stars.
We skipped some stuff there, but
astrobiology is actually the study of life out around other stars, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can we don't necessarily have to go that far. Astrobiology also includes trying to figure out if there's life on other worlds in this solar system. But of course, the question extends to the rest of the universe.
Okay. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. So where within our solar system is the best chances of finding life besides Earth? We've found lots of life on Earth, but other places in the solar system. What's the current like best most promising area that we think there might have been life?
I love this question. So, you know, a true devoted astrobiologist may have like a shorter list than me, especially with like, you know, recent missions and data that's coming back now. But as far as I understand, there are 3-ish good prospects, one of which is the moon Europa, which is one of Jupiter's 4 largest moons. Europa is essentially an ice ball. There's nothing necessarily going on the surface, but our readings have suggested that underneath the ice layer, there is actually liquid water. And moreover, I think it's something like twice as much water as what we have in all our oceans here. And we are kind of excited by this prospect because a lot of the hypotheses about how life got started here on Earth have it originating in the ocean. So we are looking for other ocean worlds. So
super fascinating. First of all, the ice that's above the water, do we think it's water ice? Well, I mean, we probably have a good understanding of what it's a water ice.
I think a lot of it is water ice. So it is actually water.
Wow. Okay. And then do we know do we have a sense of how pure the water oceans are, or if they're like, are they salt water? Are they have something else in them? Is it like it's all high quality H2O?
Oh my stars. So the way that we would try to measure that now without being able to go down and physically take samples would be to look at, you know, the actual ice, the surface ice itself. If nothing were happening on the world, it would just be like solid ice that never changes ever. But we know that this moon is active because we see patterns of the ice kind of breaking and like slush forming within and then rehardening. And so we see this kind of life cycle of the ice. And there are these kind of striations, these long kind of scratch marks crisscrossing the surface of Europa that, to my knowledge, I think they have different types of salt kind of encrusted, on the top. And so this is actually really important because our oceans are not pure H2O. And I think that that's actually, you can't necessarily form life in just purely H2O. So it's exciting to see these other compounds.
Right. Have you heard of these ocean thermal vents and the life that forms around these thermal vents?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. There are debates on whether or not Europa has enough internal energy, if its core is hot enough, if the layer between its internal heat and the ocean floor, does it actually conduct enough heat for something like thermal vents? These are all open questions.
Nice. Lupus has other plans for probes to go to. I think there's a plan for a submarine for Europa, right?
Is it a submarine? I haven't heard about the submarine, but there is a mission called the Europa Clipper, which I think it's supposed to be an orbiter. I don't think it will touch down on the ice. I don't think, but it'll stay in orbit around the moon. Oh, did you see it?
I googled NASA's submarine. NASA's Titan submarine is a proposed probe that would explore the seas of methane and ethane on Saturn's moon Titan, which is probably one of your other 3.
It is. It's my favorite, actually. So with Europa, we have to balance the desire to, take samples of the water, see what's going on underneath, with the necessity of not contaminating the moon. So actually, sending something, touching it down on the surface, 1, that's technologically more difficult and more expensive. But 2, if you're not careful about your sanitation and about, decontamination procedures. It can be dangerous for local life, because let's say that Earth microbes like love it on Europa and they outperform the local microbes, and then we've made a mistake. But
yeah. Okay. So Europa is one of the three. What else?
Europa. Also, there's a moon around Saturn called Enceladus. It's very tiny, but when the Cassini Space Telescope was orbiting around Saturn, this was back in the 2010s, it took pictures of this moon, and we could see that there are actually geysers shooting out of the moon's surface. So that indicates clearly there's a lot of energy here. Like maybe there's this if there's a global ocean underneath this icy layer, it must have like some kind of heat source maybe. Like, and another thing that the telescope, it actually was able to take samples, I believe, or at least take measurements to tell us what was in the water that was coming out. And it looks like it has, to my understanding, the majority of elements that we know to go into life here on Earth. So Enceladus is an excellent prospect, even though it's small.
Right. Those geysers on Enceladus, they spew, they're tremendous, right? Don't they? Like the geysers spew out.
They're huge.
Right.
They leave the moon entirely, to my understanding. Well, some, I think maybe some falls back as snow. But yeah, they're pretty big.
There are so many like neat things in our own solar system that would just be cool to see, you know?
Yeah.
That's one of them. One day I want to go on a space cruise ship that just goes all over and like, you know, shows that. All right. And the last of the three is Titan.
Yes. So if anyone's unfamiliar, Titan is another moon of Saturn, but it's the only moon in the solar system to have an atmosphere that's even thicker than the Earth's, which is, you know, a big deal since most moons have, you know, teeny tiny atmosphere, if that, which means they won't be able to host life on the surface. But Titan has an incredibly thick atmosphere. But I think what's most interesting about it is that rather than water, lakes and rivers and clouds, Titan has hydrocarbons. So like oil lakes, oil rivers, oil rain. And not only is this just cool for its own, that's just cool in and of itself, but it also means if there were to be life on Titan, which I don't actually know, I don't know that the energy budget is enough for something like life forms and metabolism, but if there were life on Titan, it would be an excellent case study for us, because right now the only life that we know and understand is, you know, carbon-based life that operates off of water. So if we were to find a life form that is based off of completely different chemistry, that can maybe prepare us for finding life around completely different systems that may not have the same setup as we have here in the solar system.
So cool. You just mentioned like energy budget of the planet, and like I feel like I'm tracking, but at the same time, this is something that I've never really been exposed to before. So can you explain that a little bit, please?
Absolutely. So, and maybe an astrobiologist would take issue with my conceptualization of this, but life needs energy, right? Uh-huh. Just as a baseline, and we need it for metabolic activity, so like growing, repairing, all the activity that our cells do. And different life forms will get the energy for metabolic activity in different ways. And even more than that, in order to like refuel, you know, there are some organisms that will actually eat other organisms like ourselves. You need more than just, you know, the energy for your own metabolic activity. You need there to be energy to produce your prey and what you consume to survive. Mm-hmm. So the energy budget of a world could be, you know, how much sunlight does it get and retain on its surface? How, you know, does it have thermal vents? Is there, for example, like volcanic activity? Are there plate tectonics? Like all of the energy that's available that can be in some ways part of these cycles, these natural cycles that bring it, you know, from small, teeny tiny life forms up to like advanced life forms. That I think, you know, that's what I would say goes into the energy budget. So for a planet like Mars, for example, energy budget is very small. Most of its core, as far as I know, has already cooled off. It has no atmosphere to trap sunlight. It's in a really bad position to host life, and certainly probably not intelligent life. It certainly doesn't have the energy to have actual Martians, you know what I mean? So that's one consideration when it comes to, is a place habitable? Does it have enough energy to actually support ecosystems?
Matt Damon's relieved that he will never have to be there. So that's fast. So really, really interesting distinction there too. Like in that, I mean, effectively, it sounds like, you know, the theories of it, a planet needs a higher energy budget to support intelligent life, right?
That's my understanding of the situation. I don't think you, excuse me, wow. I don't think you can support, because, you know, I'm just thinking about like humans, you know, we're made up of something like 30 trillion cells. And there are 8 billion of us walking around. You need an enormous, you know, amount of energy in various forms in order to sustain a living population like that. And I feel that, you know, there are just some worlds out there that they don't retain enough energy, certainly because, you know, and we humans, we're the result of about 4 billion years of evolution. So for a planet to sustain that energy for 4 billion years, not every planet makes it.
Right. So, did you ever, okay, so, but, God, I have so many. All right, let me go with Lupo's question real quick. Isn't oil from carbon-based life decomposition, like oil on Earth, is from carbon-based life decomposition, right? Fossil fuel. You know?
Fossil fuel, yeah. Does that mean they expect life on Titan because of the oil? So my understanding is actually that where the liquid oil, like the lakes and rivers of oil, where that exists on Titan, you need extremely cold temperatures to sustain that. So the surface of Titan is very, 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 very cold. It's actually too cold for liquid water. It's only when you kind of go beneath the surface of Titan that, as far as I'm aware, there may actually be a liquid water layer. So one of those subterranean oceans that we're so interested in when it comes to other worlds in our solar system. I think there may be some consensus forming, and maybe this will, you know, be confirmed or rejected when the Dragonfly mission gets to Titan. But I think the low temperatures, you know, not to mention stuff like the distance of Titan from the sun, make it so that I don't think that there's a lot of energy on the surface. Energy in this case being, you know, for like life, for metabolism. I think where liquid water exists, that's where you know there's going to be more energy because temperatures have risen enough for liquid water to collect. But I don't actually know necessarily that the oil, like we would love to see oil-based life forms, but I also don't know that we're expecting to see it because of the limitations that go into making the liquid oil possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. I was looking also on the Titan submarine, and I guess it's just like a proposal, and there's no like solid mission plan. So that's a bummer because that'd be friggin' cool. But probably expensive as heck, but that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So let's dive into one more fun thing, and then I'll let you go and get on with working on your thesis.
Please.
Anything but that? No. So astrobiology, study of life kind of out among the stars and whatnot. Let's get beyond our solar system. Where the heck are the aliens, right? So there's this wonderful thing called the Fermi paradox. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. But the Fermi paradox basically states, listen, there's there you go. The nowhere in real life, as you're saying, the aliens are nowhere. Anyway, alien takes. Let's go. So the Fermi paradox basically says like there's billions of stars out there, right? And statistically speaking, that means there should be like a bunch of planets out there. They don't even have to have planets around every star, but like if there's billions, if 1% of those stars have planets, then that's still a ton of planets, right? And if a fraction of those many planets like could possibly have life, where is it? Why aren't we kind of seeing any of this life? Just from the numbers, so many stars sort of indicates that like unless we are somehow unique, there should be other life out there in the universe. Why aren't we seeing it? And there's a lot of thoughts on that, including things like the Great Filter, which basically says life might not make it for a long time, kind of like you were talking about. You know, it takes we're the sort of result of 4 billion years of evolution, but not all planets make it that long. So if you happen to be evolving on a planet that you know, because I mean, think of it like, you know, even like a few thousand years today, if the planet suddenly was like, I'm done, Earth is like, I'm over, I've had enough, like we're screwed. We can't all get off, you know, and we're not a multiplanetary species today. You know, maybe in 100 years, maybe that would be a survivable incident. In 200 years, 300, 500 years, likely, I think that would be a survivable incident. But today, done. Humanity over, you know? So that's kind of the Great Filter. But there's lots of other things, too. One of the things that I think about as I'm thinking about this, too, is like, how would we even go about observing aliens? Like, we have... You know, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, like uses radio telescopes, and they're just looking for radio signals. But like, that's kind of a shit way to send a message light years across, you know. And when we're even starting to get introduced to the idea of quantum entanglement, you know, there's so many other things that we're barely learning about, and maybe there could be like applications for communication. Certainly I've seen like quantum entanglement in sci-fi as communication. That's sort of fun, you know. So maybe we're even like looking in the wrong ways and we just don't know better, you know, where maybe their life is anyway. What are your thoughts on sort of the Fermi paradox and where the heck the aliens are, Ness? Where are they?
Great question. I have all the answers.
Why you been holding out? Everyone wants to know. No. Give us
the way I would get carted into an underground government facility, never to see the light of day again.
Yeah.
But I first want to go into one of the like secondary questions that you mentioned, which is like, you know, why are we searching in this very shitty way? And there's a little bit of method to what is clearly madness. But so in the first place, and maybe some of us know about something called the Kardashev scale, which is basically almost like a measure of advancement. You can apply to, you know, these hypothetical civilizations that may be out there. So the first level is a civilization that has advanced enough to utilize all of the, you know, resources of their home planet. Maybe on the second level is a civilization that can utilize all the resources of their home star. And then like a third, you know, level would be can utilize their entire home galaxy. So the unfortunate reality is that we probably cannot pick up other type 1 civilizations easily if their activity is confined to their home world. It's very difficult to get detailed measurements of what's happening, even in an atmosphere of an exoplanet, let alone on the surface. So that's probably not going to happen. Level 3 civilization, it's been said that they might even appear as like gods to us. The power differential, the advancement differential could be so large we wouldn't even understand necessarily what we were observing if we could make measurements of them. And so the best bet would be, you know, a type 2 civilization. Some civilization that's maybe started spreading out in their solar system. Maybe they've even started building things like megastructures around their star, what we call a Dyson sphere, to take advantage of the radiation of their home star. So if the civilization is just out there and they're not thinking about us, they're going about their daily business, we may be able to pick up signals, inadvertent signals, of their presence. But if there was a civilization out there that we think was actually trying to establish two-way communication with us, the reason we choose radio is because, at least in our experience, that was the first tech we developed that could make it into space. And we have, for that reason, at least some small kind of evidence that maybe radio is the first tech, that other civilizations achieve as well. I shouldn't say the first tech, but the first, interstellar communication tech. It's very, it's pretty basic, as we know, so.
No, yeah, no, but yeah, we're not going to reach aliens with homing pigeons. I get it.
And then, we have specific signals that we send out and that we look for because we think they would be understood by other aliens, no matter their language, no matter their biology, etc. As long as they have astronomy, we think they should be able to pick up these signals we're sending. But it's a terrible system, and it doesn't address your first question, which is, are they even there?
Right. And okay, let's hold your thoughts on the are they even there. I want to get to that. You mentioned a Dyson sphere, which is this megastructure. The concept of basically, I think of it as like a giant space station wrapped around a star. If you were trying to detect a Dyson sphere from Earth out there light years away, how could we?
Well, and now we're in the realm of sci-fi, so I feel I can say whatever.
Yeah.
But my intuitive answer would be, I feel like, if they were in the middle of setting up the sphere, that would probably be the best time to observe it. My reasoning is, when you don't have the full megastructure built, there will be some periodicity in that star's, starlight. So, as the sphere is being built, you're going to get kind of flashes almost. Mm-hmm. And that could be like an indication that something's happening there. And in fact, we have had stars that have mysteriously dimmed. And, there are perfectly reasonable astronomical explanations for why that's happened, but we're used to the idea of catching that sudden dimming, that sudden and almost unphysical dimming. And then, I think most civilizations who build a Dyson sphere, I can't imagine there's enough material in their system to fully encase the star. It would probably be more like lace or like a lattice. And in that case, maybe you get similar periodicity that will kind of show that they're there. The blinking light.
It's a really good point, actually, that I hadn't really fully considered, because even Jupiter is tiny compared to the sun.
Right. So even if you mind the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, I doubt, especially if you want electronics, if you want I don't know that there's enough material to fully, I don't think they would do it that way. What do I know? I've never seen one, but that's my intuitive answer.
I mean, I'm no Dyson sphere expert here, I haven't never laid eyes on it myself. Right. Okay. Similar but revert. Let's pretend that you were on a Dyson sphere. Even let's not actually, because if you're on a Dyson sphere, that implies a certain level of advancement. That let's just pretend that you have Earth tech, but you're not on Earth. You're on you're on Alpha Centauri. Not on, but around Alpha Centauri, and you're trying to detect life on Earth. Do you think that you could?
No, I don't think so. I mean, okay, let me retract that statement. So the radio signal, if I'm on Proxima B or something and I'm specifically looking for radio, there's more than enough. Instantly, yes, okay, Earth is there, there's a civilization. But if we're simply talking, if I didn't know to look in the radio, I don't necessarily know that we as a civilization give off any indication that we're here. If we go back to the Kardashev scale, we're not even considered a full full type 1 civilization. We're like a 0.7 because we actually don't do a good job of utilizing the resources of our planet to sustain the civilization. So,
right. Yeah. So, and but radio signals have been transmitted for decades, maybe like 100 years. So I guess like technically our radio signals are like 100 years, like 100 light years out in the cosmos ish,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty good range, I suppose. Uh, but yeah, I mean, but you compare that with the scale of the universe, which is what, billions of light years, I think, right?
Well,
What's the furthest observable thing that we've observed?
oh geez. I think there was some record-setting star called Arendelle that we found recently, and that's like over 13 billion light years away. But yeah, I mean, we don't even have to go all the way out to the universe. We even just in our home galaxy, the Milky Way. The Milky Way is something like what, like 100,000 light years across. So only reaching out like 100 light years. There are stars. There are stars within 100 light years of us.
Yeah,
And they are the type of star usually that we expect to host planets. But you know that's we're still working with small statistics.
crazy. Yeah, and so Lupus asked like nuclear weapons, and I think what he's asking is like, you know, would you be able to detect nuclear weapons? And I don't think you could from light years away. I don't think you'd like. How would you? How would like even if we like detonated a nuclear weapon in space? I think like compared to a star, it's not going to register. You know?
Yeah, I think I second that. Every single
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say every single second the sun puts out enough energy to like power our entire civilization, you know, for some interminable amount of time. So the sun is powerful. It'd be very hard to see a little firefly next to it, for example. You know.
Yeah. So, are there aliens? In you know, the other side of the Fermi paradox. You know, like you know, what do you think?
Well, you know, you mentioned there being like a couple different answers to the Fermi paradox, and I'm not a big fan of the pessimistic ones, even if I do think they're the most likely to be true. Given our like civilization's trajectory, you know, I think maybe one filter could be nuclear holocaust. Maybe civilizations do destroy themselves before they can make it to the international stage. I'm sorry, the interstellar stage.
Yeah.
It's also possible that we're just first. We haven't detected anything because only now have the conditions become right in the cosmos, you know, for maybe 13 billion years is the magic number, and we just made it first, and that's why no one else is there. But my favorite, you know, solution to the Fermi paradox is, I think they call it the Sentinel hypothesis. But, you know, it's the idea that there are civilizations out there, but for their own reasons, for, you know, whatever reason, they haven't revealed themselves yet. And I like this hypothesis a lot because, you know, it has the element of trial to it. So in a movie like Contact, we humans, you know, we receive the first, you know, communication from another civilization because we reached some technological threshold, because we demonstrated that we had come like a certain distance from our origins, intellectually and technologically speaking. So I like the idea of having to prove ourselves, you know, to the interstellar community, and more than that, I really like the idea of there being some kind of galactic community that we can one day kind of earn our place in and join. Because I think many people, even if we don't think about it, I think it is very human to kind of feel intellectually really lonely here on Earth, where, you know, we have other species that we like and they exhibit, you know, plenty of their own intelligence, like crows, pigs, apes, etc. But, you know, we're pretty singular still at this moment in evolution. And I think we kind of wonder, like, what is it like to have fellowship? What is it like to communion with other, like, fully intelligent beings? And I just like the idea of them, like, waiting.
Yeah. I like that. And that seems, you know, yeah, you you meant in like, for whatever reason they haven't revealed themselves, probably because they have better stuff to do, you know? They could very well be out there building Dyson spheres and not even know that we're out here on this third rock from our sun, like, doing
Absolutely.
dumb things like playing Helldivers 2, I don't know.
Also, we're like smelly monkeys that still throw rocks at each other. So, maybe they'll wait.
But we've gotten so good at throwing rocks at each other.
Too good. Too good.
Yeah. 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 I like thinking that, though. I like thinking, that maybe there's some other people out there that have figured out that throwing rocks at each other is not the best way to resolve conflicts, Yeah. Yeah. Ness, this has been absolutely lovely.
Oh, yeah. I truly enjoyed myself, and I'm so grateful for all the questions and all the neat little twists and turns we got to follow tonight.
Right? Chat brought it tonight. Good job, Chat. It was fun. Where can people find and follow you, and where can they pick up Scourge Between Stars?
Yeah, so I'm Ness, the novelist, on Twitter and on Insta, or X and Insta. And my website is ness-brown.com. And on the website, there's a link to places where you might like to buy Scourge if you're interested. But, if you have a bookshop around the corner, you can just walk out and support local businesses as well.
There we go. And of course, you can find me at nicholaswfuller.com. You can check me out on Patreon and join for free and see all the things that I'm doing. Yeah. Thank you again, Ness. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And everyone out there, if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.